we will see every single cryptocurrency that the US government holds. I think it's pretty clear they hold around 200,000 Bitcoin, but what other assets do they hold? Do they hold any Sol, Sui? That might create a little bit of an interesting narrative. Obviously, they're, in this case, they're seized assets. They haven't bought them.
The US Treasurer, Scott Bassett, basically talking about they plan to really hone in on the stablecoin industry as a way to retain US dollar dominance across the world. The next 2 years look a lot more optimistic. The next potential bear market, I'm way more optimistic.
G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Tapping into Crypto. We're back after a hectic week. Not exactly a good week in terms of the charts, but like a lot of news to unpack. Pav, I know you just like to turn the charts upside down and pretend they're going up, but that's not the case.
Tried that old trick today this morning. Ted came in and I flipped the chart upside down. Red was going up, green was going down.
Yeah.
It was hilarious for 1 second.
Yeah, it was.
And only for me.
It's good from you though, Pav.
Yeah.
But look, we're here to unpack it all. Obviously, we had the summit, which we touched on last week. That's done and dusted. We're going to unpack what happened there. White House Summit, yep. The Bitcoin Strategic Reserve got an executive order signed. So we discussed how Trump posted on Twitter how he was going to do that, but we didn't expect an executive order to be officially signed, sealed, delivered that week.
Yep.
So some major news happening, but what's going on? Like the markets are bleeding out. Bitcoin's below 80K US. Like it's just a bit of a
it's just not enough for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Well, there's a bit more to it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll try and unpack that all, give our thoughts on it. But yeah, a bit depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to see. I mean, I think specifically for people looking at their altcoin portfolios, I think we're looking at a stat today, even this morning. It's been like over 300 days since the halving, and usually after 180 days in the last two cycles, we've seen an altcoin season start to take off.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's just a little bit...
Wait, you said it's over 300 days?
300 days.
And...
past cycles.
And we haven't had a full altcoin season.
Correct, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, traditionally what you describe that as Bitcoin's dominance of the total market cap.
Yeah.
Like falling, careening off a cliff. So that's usually when we've seen rotation into altcoins, they outperform Bitcoin. Just hasn't happened.
Do you think that's because we potentially broke this 4-year cycle and with, ETFs and governments buying up crypto, like things have changed now?
Maybe, but
we said that last cycle.
Well, yeah. I think the one thing we've always held on this show specifically that I'm quite proud of is the fact that we've always said, expect it to be the same but not identical. So, like this is obviously a lot different. It's 300 days, but people definitely hurting.
Yeah, big time. And I think the key thing there is like, if you're new to crypto and you think you're going to do well based on previous market cycles, as you said, expect the unexpected because, the smart money is going to win out and it's not necessarily going to be the people who are buying crypto for the first time, expecting to make big bucks. Like, the market typically has a funny way of going about that and
tends to hurt the most amount of people as quick as possible.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right, well, let's unpack things. So Trump posted on Truth Social last week about XRP, Sol, and ADA, as well as ETH and Bitcoin, building a Bitcoin strategic reserve around that. We did see him sign that executive order on about Thursday or Friday our time.
Yep.
That was only Bitcoin. And we discussed last week as well whether it's going to be like a stockpile of seized assets from the likes of Silk Road and other, criminal activity.
Yeah, hats off, Ted. You really call that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why they call me Mystic Mac.
That's what we're doing. Oh my
God. Or was it gonna be a strategic reserve where they actually actively acquire Bitcoin, which of course will typically cost the taxpayer money, right? In this case, it's just going to be a stockpile of Bitcoin. So none of those assets that we're discussing in that Truth Social post, unfortunately, it's just Bitcoin. And they haven't discussed how they're going to acquire Bitcoin. It's just those seized assets. And I think they have about 200,000 Bitcoin in
16 bill US.
Yeah. $16 billion. Yeah. So they're not going to sell any of that, which is a good thing.
Yep.
But they're also not going to be actively acquiring any more for the time being.
Yeah. And I think a fair bit of the sell-off is just a realization of that reality. A lot of people expected, because, I mean, let's be real. Like Donald Trump, like we said it from when he was going through his election campaign, he's making a lot of promises right now. But the going to go in and buy millions of Bitcoin per day as part of a strategic reserve. It always seemed like a little bit of like an extreme. And
well, it's not the end of the road for that. Because
no.
despite this executive order not including anything like that, David Sachs, who's the crypto and AI czar, he's come out and says we will look to buy or we'll look to purchase Bitcoin to grow our reserve over the coming years without having to use taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
So we've discussed a little bit on the show about how they could do that, revaluing their gold reserves, potentially the money saved from the Doge initiative.
Even tariffs, like there's a lot of revenue being generated from the tariffs.
True.
So
that's not taxpayer money.
Yeah, it's definitely not out of the woods, but I would say short term, I feel like a lot of people were expecting more, and the fact they're not getting it, I feel like there's just a little bit of a real sobering moment for the short term, because the long terms never look better again.
Yeah, it's interesting like that. Hey, like the short term is bleeding out, but long term everything's lining up. But interestingly as well, that was announced as part of this executive order is it will mandate a full audit of all the digital assets currently in the government's possession. So we will see every single cryptocurrency that the US government holds. I mean, I think it's pretty clear they hold around 200,000 Bitcoin, but what other assets do they hold? Do they hold any Sol, Sui?
Who knows?
Even Pepe, like what's that look like? And that might create a little bit of an interesting narrative. Obviously, in this case, they're seized assets. They haven't bought them.
Be hilarious if they had a bunch of Monero or some sort of privacy coin in there. All of a sudden, they're going to hold on to it.
Wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so that happened like Thursday or Friday our time, and then the Crypto White House Summit was on Friday.
But it was
Saturday morning for us in Australia.
Yeah.
No major news came out of that. It was a bit sort of lackluster. They had some of the biggest, industry members there. They had Michael Saylor, they had Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, they had Sergey from Chainlink. So all the key industry players. There was heaps more. I'm sure we could have a full list of them. But I think the interesting thing was we were expecting it to be like super bullish and to be major announcements, but it was sort of just reiterating what we kind of already knew.
Yeah, nothing new was dropped, right? Which I think a lot of people were wanting to hear more of. The one thing that I sort of took away that I thought was very interesting was the US Treasurer, Scott Bassett, basically talking about they plan to really hone in on the stablecoin industry as a way to retain US dollar dominance across the world. And like we've already talked about it, crypto price is very influenced by the dollar because everything's, measured in some sort of synthetic US dollar, USDT, USDC. So it seems like they're sort of all ears are up really for how they're going to make that work for them.
Well, it makes sense, right? Like these stablecoin issuers like Tether and Circle, like they say that they back their stablecoin with US dollars or US dollar equivalents, like government bonds and things like that. So it's obviously good for the US dollar if, these stablecoins actually need to be backed by the US dollar because that creates demand for it, right?
Yes, correct, yeah.
So that is, I mean, that's something we've touched on a lot. Like the stablecoin has that product market fit, probably more so than any other use case or product that is currently in crypto. So
agreed.
Just sort of lines up with that. Any other interesting things coming out from that, Pav?
FIFA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was...
Was it the FIFA president?
Yeah, so the FIFA president randomly came in because they're hosting the next World Cup.
He was just in the room next door, thought he'd pop in.
Yeah, and they've got a new trophy. So he spent about 20 minutes just talking about this trophy and about the World Cup in front of all these crypto dudes.
Michael Saylor's just there on his phone.
Yeah, Michael Saylor seemed interested at first. He was taking photos, and then he looked very uninterested after about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But didn't you see something funny about Trump thinking he was a Bitcoiner?
Oh, there's like a meme on X getting around of Trump looking at the big feet because it's a huge shield. It's almost like a coin. It's just a meme saying, "Oh, so this is what a Bitcoin looks like." I was just like, it's pretty funny. But I thought it was bizarre. But then there was there's little subtle hints of maybe longer term things that are sort of going to come out of the result of this. Trump and I think the US are trying to be the crypto capital of the world. So I mean, if they are the first ones that bring brand tokenization to be a big thing, we've already seen that with political figures. Even social norms like Dogecoin and Pepe, right? They're memes, right? So what if the next iterative step is something like FIFA, right? So you can somehow tokenize that brand and create it's like the NFT argument all over again. People want to be a part of a brand. What if that's almost like the direction that they're going with, like that real world asset sort of space and having a share of a brand through a token.
Yeah, so I didn't see a heap about that, but I saw Trump just commenting, and maybe one day this FIFA coin will be worth more than FIFA.
Yeah, that's what he said.
which is obviously what happened with Trump, is that he tripled his wealth overnight by just launching a meme coin. So,
well, the World Liberty Finance, I don't know if you heard, they're like down 300 mil at the moment, I think it is.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, not good. Well, he's one of us. He's down 60% on his portfolio.
Yeah, I know that.
Or whatever the percentage is.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, apart from that, I thought another big piece of what was said, but you kind of maybe have to, interpret it. And it's all about your interpretation. I thought him spending time talking about he butchered it, but like the fact they're never going to sell their Bitcoin as a part of this initiative, that's 200,000 Bitcoin or 16 bill US currently valued. Yep. That's off the sell side of the books. Every other previous...
That's pretty similar to what you have, hey?
I wish. And then that's that much off, ever being able to go to market and being on the sell side of any book, right?
Yeah.
And then that sort of opens up, well, for me, of thinking, all right, well, if there's copycat nations coming out off the back of this, which there will be, there's copycat states like, initiatives are not so much a copycat, but similar initiatives like Texas greenlit their strategic reserve, like as a state. I think their GDP alone is more than most countries as well, which is just crazy to think one US state pulls in that much.
Well, it used to be its own country.
Texas
used to be an independent country.
There you go. True. Hell, I'll probably get burnt alive for not knowing that. But I mean, it just goes to show then, well, if this is going to be a common theme and everyone's just holding, because that's just what we do for now, like that could change in the future, who knows? Massive supply shock, right? So I don't know, for me, it's like the next 2 years look a lot more optimistic. The next potential bear market, I'm way more optimistic. The top of this market cycle, which I still don't think is over, I'm still optimistic. Like it's almost like the ETF news. Like there was a lot of sell the news on the ETF, but then we never saw price go back again to those January prices. Yeah,
true. But I also think it is part of a bigger picture, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
And it's probably surrounding like Trump's tariffs and sort of fear and uncertainty around that, particularly in global markets.
You mean the prices falling right now?
Yeah. So obviously we've got all this good news coming out of the US, but then crypto prices are falling pretty badly, and then also stock prices as well. I think like concerns around recession are back. There's talk that the US Federal Reserve, so their central bank, won't actually drop rates anytime in 2025.
Doesn't seem right. I think there's already 3 priced in, so I think it's just a lot of media hype.
Yeah,
personally,
could be just a lot of speculation and uncertainty there. But yeah, like if you're looking at the market and say I'm no Pav Hundal, so I'm not, a genius when it comes to reading charts or macroeconomic conditions. Like, where do you sit currently? Are you bullish? Is this a time when there's so much blood in the market that like it's a good time to get in?
I like, because moments like this I love to some degree, because it's like a complete mismatch of you know exactly what people's expectations are in moments like this.
Yeah,
you have people that are so upset and just angry, but that's because they're expecting to get rich next week, because they unfortunately probably came in a period where things are going quite well. You could chuck $100 into a Solana meme coin, it was worth $200, but when you woke up tomorrow, that's a very nice way to wake up every morning, but it's also not reality forever, right? So but then you have the other person that's been buying Bitcoin since 2022, just DCAing, maybe buying a bit of Solana, bit of Chainlink, Aave, whatever.
Yeah.
They're not obviously hurting as much, but they've obviously just had time in the market. And I think as much as it's a bit of a meme in itself, I think just that element of like time in the market right now is a very clear way to cut people.
Yeah.
A lot of people exposure since December, very much in the red, probably down half their portfolio net worth if you're not in Bitcoin alone. Whereas someone who's been in for, a while now, they're still sitting in a pretty good position, looking more optimistic for further upside because they've already spent that time in the market.
And I think it's experience as well, right? Like we've seen this many times before.
Yeah.
And what happens, what is typically the best time to buy? It's when no one else wants to buy, right?
It's a bull market when things are down 30%. And that's what Bitcoin's doing right now. I think it's like 29.8% down. So
yeah, exactly. And then people often, have that regret later down the track where it's like, I should have bought, but it's like my mindset and the sentiment was so low that I wasn't even thinking about buying. I was just thinking about how can I get out. So it does require a little bit of that mindset shift, but also that experience that comes with the experience of being in the market, for a few years at least.
Definitely. But I would say with one piece of what's happening right now, it's very out of seasonality. Like a lot of what we're seeing right now from like a data perspective, it's out of kilter of what people would expect if you're measuring up to previous cycles. So understandably, there's a bit of uncertainty and trepidation, even from like the social analysts that you can follow. They're usually quite on the money, but there's just this moment in time where not everyone's certain. And that also, for a lot of reasons, spells opportunity as well for me personally. I just feel like when something good will always happen when people aren't expecting it. And it might also be the worst thing that could happen in the market. You look back right now with hindsight, if you could be back in during the COVID crash, I know everyone will be doing one thing, and that's buying. And maybe crying because their previous purchases are down so hard. But it was quite a quick move. I'm not saying we're going to get that, and I'm not saying that this is a time to buy, but I just think, realistically speaking, whenever the sentiment's in the rough like it is now, it historically has been the better times to at least enter the market slowly even, whereas the opposite is true, right? We had Trump coin launch, and that was pretty much, let's call it circa top of the market most recently. So is what it is, but we just keep playing on, Play on.
Play ball. Pav.
Yeah. How about you?
Mate, yeah, I'm in a similar sort of position. Like I picked up, just as part of my regular dollar cost averaging strategy, just picked up a little bit more Bitcoin and SUI last night. I think SUI's dropped, like 60%.
Back to like $2,
yeah,
was it?
Sitting at like $2.10.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good little entry point to dollar cost averaging. But apart from that, not getting too worried about everything happening, because as we say, like short term, these things
you're so out of control
in crypto. So like if you really let that dictate your decisions, like you're not really going to do well in this market. So you got to have that long-term mindset, particularly around Bitcoin. But this is what we talk about. Like, this is why like Bitcoin should make up the majority of your portfolio for times like this.
Sobering reminder.
Because Bitcoin's down 8%, and everyone's freaking out. But you look at altcoins that are down 60%.
Yeah.
So it's just more of a risk adverse approach.
But to be clear, we're all still very upset to even be red. Like, it's always something that'll follow you, but you just learn to live with it.
Well, that's why I thought you sounded like a psychopath when you're like, I love times like this. You love pain.
Well, no, it's more a case of like, it's hard to know like if we're going to go higher or lower before moments like this, I feel like. But whenever we get these rapid moves, I find it's a lot easier to make a call, for me personally at least.
Yeah, I love that Chris, who's been on the show before, he thought we bottomed out at 88K and put like a 3x leverage trade on Bitcoin, and then now we're down at 78. So yeah, I mean, Chris has never been known for his trading, but that those things can happen. So yeah, even be more vigilant with when it comes to financial products like leverage trading and things like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyhow, Pav, any final thoughts?
No, look, I think if I had to draw anything in terms of similarities right now, and I've already said it, but I feel like it's very similar like vibes to me as like post-ETF, like a little bit worse with like the global meltdown around the growth scare in the US. I do think a lot of that resolves only in one way. It's kind of like, well, they have to do something about it. So we're going to get the net result that we all want for the market to go higher, which is some sort of quantitative easing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like hang out, stick it out. If you're down pretty bad, just reassess next time how much you've got in, and if you got too much in the space to begin with, just step away from the market for a bit. It's always a good time for that when we're like this.
Well, stay tuned, guys. We'll unpack all the key news during the week and follow the market. So
yeah, we'll check in with everyone next week. Make sure you're feeling all right,
Yeah, actually, I think we've got a guest episode next week.
Oh, we do?
We'll make sure to touch on the key news that's happening as well. Yeah. So see you guys then. Stay tuned.
Bye.